Hi guys, welcome! Morning, Yarus! Hi, how are you? It's good to see everyone. Okay, I am so sorry about that. That was a little bit of a, mess on Twitch's end. I'm sorry about that. OBS disconnecting and reconnecting. So, how's everyone doing today? It's wonderful to see everybody in here. Alright, so of course, as usual, since this is the start of the week, we're gonna get started with a nice little, like coven-wide reading. Basically, it's the usual basic 3-card rule where, you know, the first card, that represents you. Oh, the person in the chat. I'm doing good, thank you so much. It's been, like, very busy lately, but things have gotten a lot better. So, of course, with our weekly ratings, it's the usual first card, that represents the entire chat, that represents all of you. This could apply to some, this could apply to none. It is up to you how you interpret the reading. So, it applies to whoever this reading is reaching out to. The middle card will be, you know, what's going on in the week, what can you expect ahead in the week, and the third card will be, how are you going to approach whatever happens this week. So, let me see. Let's get our trusted cards out. Give me a moment. Alright, now that we have our tarot cards out, let's get to shuffling. Usual weekly shuffle. So, how is the week going to go for the chat? Let's start with that. And then we'll move right on to reading our book. Getting you guys those comfy, cozy, Halloween-y vibes. Okay. Let's see. Come on. There we go. Okay. Whoop. And a card popped out. Okay, let's see. Oh, God! Okay. Oh, God! Sorry. My cards have dropped everywhere. My cards are everywhere! I can't pick up the cards because of my nails. Gods! Ah! Ghost! 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 Roommate! Can you help me pick up a tarot card off the ground because I can't get it off the ground because of my nails? Yes. Thank you. Sorry guys, give me a hot second. Wait, hang on. Let me try to get it. Let me try. I got it. Never mind. Got it. Ow. Oh gods. As always, these streams start off very chaotic. Okay.
Can they see cats?
Huh?
Can they see cats?
They cannot see the cats, but they can hear them. Hey, Chip! You want to give the chat the usual hello?
He's so sweet.
So sweet baby. Hello.
And the baby.
Interrupting this regularly scheduled tarot reading for sweet little baby. How are you, Chipper? Can you say hi to chat? Oh, sorry.
Give us a squeak.
Squeaky.
I want a squeak. No, not today.
Not today.
Not
It's
today.
okay.
That's okay. We're gonna go on a walk.
Alright, you guys have fun. Fun fact, yeah, our cat can go on walks. That's something. Anyways. So, okay, so we got our first card. Oh crap, is it... I know it landed down on a certain face. Was it... upright? It was upright. Okay. Good. Okay. Want to make sure. Okay. All right. So, what do we have to look forward to in the week? That is the secondary card of the reading. Got that. And third card. How can we approach the week? How can we approach the week? What can we do to combat these little things that happen throughout the week? Let's see. Oh. Card at the top. Hi there, hey, Egg Wapiton. Welcome. Welcome into the coven. Very lovely to have you here. Welcome. Alright, so we got our cards. We got our tarot cards for the week. Alright, so what do we got? So, let me see. Put all the rest away. Fake cards. And, alright. So, we got our 3 cards of the week. So, card representing us. Page of Cups, upright. What can we expect throughout the week? 5 of Swords, upright. And what can we do to combat this week? 3 of Wands, reversed. Alright, let me see. Page of Cups. There we go. Page of Cups, upright. The Page of Cups is creative, playful, emotional, and intuitive. It invites you to listen more to your creative side and to follow those urges. Pages are seen to be messengers, so you may be receiving positive or important updates soon, like invitations or special news that could take the shape of a flash of inspiration for a creative project. The Page of Cups encourages you to take advantage of that and run with it. Alright, so whoever this applies to is a very productive person, you know. They're really busy this week, you know, they got a lot going for them. That's good. Okay. Let's see, 5 of Swords. There we go. 5 of Swords, upright. 5 of Swords. The 5 of Swords heralds a conflict that includes major pain, frustration, humiliation, egoism in the mix. While conflict can be good to address what needs to be addressed, this particular confrontation is more detrimental than beneficial. If you're winning, ask yourself if it's worth it. Are you jeopardizing your dignity, your relationships, your reputation? In the end, and is winning worth the collateral damage? In the future, keep in mind that not every argument needs to be a battle, and that vulnerability, compassion, and acquiescence are signs of maturity. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit of a rough week, socially speaking. There may be conflicts that will result in you know, maybe some feelings of detachment or insignificance to yourself, but that is okay. Remember that these are only the trials that you will face this week, and that there is a solution. So, what is the solution to this week? 3 of Wands reversed. Let's see. 3 of Wands. Okay. When reversed, the 3 of Wands warns of potential pitfalls that may come due to hang-ups and miscommunication. Breathe through your rising blood pressure and recalibrate. So, what if your partner left you on red and you asked where their part of the presentation was? You have time to whip up something to keep the ball rolling, and that person who has yet to text you back about your next date, stop worrying about it. If you want to turn your attention elsewhere, that's valid. But if you felt a genuine spark, a little patience and understanding could go a long way. So, of course, the whole interpretation of this reading is you are a very spriteful, very playful being. But this week will be a little rough for you, but that is okay. You will make it through this week with patience and with dignity. You will make it through this week, and I know you can. I believe in you, okay? Alright, so with all of that in mind, we can finally move along to the fun part of our stream. So, this is going to be a lot of fun. So, alrighty. Let me get that all together. Now, today we will be reading a special light novel called Another by Yukito Ayatsuji. It is a very nice, it's one of my go-to reads when it comes to the spooky season. I love reading spooky stories throughout like the fall season, like August all the way to November, I always gotta read like scary stories or something. So I'll preface this story by warning you that it is a book that deals with, some freaky topics. It can get a little creepy. I like to call this story Another by Yukito Ayatsuji. I like to call this book like the anime equivalent of Final Destination. It is a light novel that has been adapted into a manga and an anime. So if you guys are interested in watching it, I would highly recommend it. It is a really good gateway series. With that in mind, feel free to just sit back, relax, and I will be reading to you Yukito Ayatsuji's Another. And feel free to follow along if you have the book. Feel free to just do whatever you wish. Feel free to write, draw, sleep, do whatever you want. I'm just here to read and have a good time with you guys. Alright, so let's switch over to the reading section. There we go. Do you like this little setup that I came up with? It's like from a bunch of assets that I found on Etsy from a bunch of small creators that I will be crediting in my credit section on my page. I love this little setup, and I will make sure to credit all creators within my credits page, and you can all find all of that over on my Twitch. Alright, so let's get started. Let me get some rain ambiance going real fast. Okay, how does everybody feel about the rain ambiance? Oh shoot, there is an overlap with the chat. Hold on. There we go. Better. Okay. So, if there are any questions, comments, concerns throughout the entire, throughout the stream, please let me know. And if at any point you feel the need to say anything, feel free to say it in the chat. Just have a good time, relax, and just enjoy the time and company we all have here. Alright. Oh, give me one moment. Let me close my door. That way there's no, loud noises or anything. Let me see. Alright. Part 1. Why? Introduction. Do you know who Misaki is? The one in 3rd year, class 3. Did you hear the story? Misaki. Is that someone's name? Yeah. No one knows what characters it's written with. It could be a last name or a first. So it's not even necessarily a girl. Either way, Misaki so-and-so or so-and-so Misaki, there was a student named Misaki 26 years ago. 26 years? Wow, that's a long time. That's back at the first emperor. 1972, the 42nd year of Emperor Hirohito's reign. I think that was the year Okinawa was returned. Okinawa came back? From where? Are you stupid? America was occupying it all up until then. Ever since the war ended. Oh, so that's why there's still all those graves. Now that I think about it, the Winter Games were in Sapporo that year too. Pretty sure the Mount Asuma Lodge incident was too. What lodge in Mount Asuma? Are you for real? Whatever, I guess. Anyway, what matters is, 26 years ago, there was a student named Misaki in class 3 of the 3rd years. And then, are you sure you've never heard of this story before? Hold on. You're saying the kid was named Misaki, not Masaki? If it's Masaki, then yeah, I've heard a little bit about it. Masaki, huh? Maybe it's like that in some versions. Who'd you hear it from? An upperclassman in my club. What'd he say? I don't know if it was 26 years ago, but there was a third-year student named Misaki a long, long time ago. And, the way I heard it, it was a boy. And something really weird happened in his class that year. But my upperclassman said it's a secret, and you're not supposed to go around talking about it. So he said he couldn't tell me anything else. That's it? Yeah. He said if you joke around about it, bad things will happen to you. I bet you it's one of those things, the 7 mysteries. You think so? You know how piccolo music starts playing in the music room in the middle of the night when no one's around? Or how sometimes a hand all covered in blood reaches out of the lotus pond in the schoolyard? So I figure, maybe this is the 7th one of those. I heard that the mannequins in the home ec room have actual heartbeats. They totally do. And there's a ton besides that. I know like 9 or 10 of the 7 mysteries of this middle school. But this story about Misaki or Masaki or whatever it was, I don't think it's one of those. Most of the stories feel pretty different from the rest of the 7 mysteries. Wow, really? So you know the details? A little, I guess. Tell me. What? You don't care if something bad happens to me? It's just superstition, obviously. Yeah, you're probably right. So tell me. Actually, I don't know if I should. Come on, I'll never ask you for anything else. And how many times have it been the last thing you've ever asked me for? Oh, for crying out loud. If I tell you, you can't go blabbing to everyone you know. I won't tell anyone, I swear. Okay. Awesome. So maybe it's Misaki. Or it's Masaki. I guess for now. I'll just say it's Misaki. Ever since their first year, this kid was popular with everyone. Brilliant student, accomplished athlete, really good at drawing, even a talented musician. On top of all of that, Misaki was gorgeous. And if he was a guy, he was chiseled. In whichever way, Misaki didn't have a single flaw. That sounds kind of obnoxious, don't you think? Nope. They say Misaki had a great personality too. Not obnoxious or stuck up at all. The kid was nice to everyone and just casual enough. That's why the teachers and students and everybody else adored Misaki. Well, you get it? Misaki was popular. Huh. So people like that actually exist? So 3rd year started, and Misaki got put up into class 3 when they switched up the room assignments. And all of a sudden, Misaki died. Whoa. It was still first semester, right before Misaki's 15th birthday. What happened? Was it a car accident? Did Misaki get sick? I heard it was a plane crash. Misaki's whole family was going to Hokkaido, and on the way back, the plane nosedived. But there were other theories too. So the other kids got this horrible news, and it was a huge shock. I bet it was. How could this happen? Everyone was shouting. Other people were wailing. This can't be true. But a bunch of kids were absolutely wrecked with crying. The homeroom teacher had no idea what to say to them, and the whole classroom had this otherworldly atmosphere. In the middle of all that, somebody said, "Misaki's not dead. I mean, look. Can't you see Misaki here?" This kid pointed to Misaki's desk and said, "Look, Misaki's right there. Where else would Misaki be? Misaki's alive and right over there." After that, student after student chimed in, backing up the first kid. It's true. Misaki's not dead. Misaki's alive. Misaki's right over there. What did they mean? Nobody wanted to believe that such a popular person had died so suddenly, and they didn't want to accept it. That's what I figure. But in the end of that day, but it didn't end that day. The class kept it going for a long time after that. What do you mean? Everyone in the class banded together after that and kept pretending. Hey, Misaki's still alive. I heard even the teacher was in on it all the way. It's true, you're right, all of you. Misaki isn't dead. In this classroom at least, Misaki lives on as a member of our class. From now on, we all need to work together to graduate. All of us together. Or something like that at least. It makes a good story, I guess, but I don't know. It's kind of creepy. That was how they ended up spending the rest of their middle school careers. They left Misaki's desk exactly how it had been. And sometimes they would rest a hand on it and start talking to Misaki, who was supposed to be sitting there. Or they would goof around with Misaki or go home together. But of course, it was all just an act. At the graduation ceremony, the principal was even considerate enough to set up a seat for Misaki. I guess it was a good story. Yeah. Basically, this is a beautiful story with some great source material, actually. There's a scary twist at the end. Oh, like what? After graduation, they took a photo in the classroom. The next day, when they were looking at the developed picture, everyone noticed something. In the class photo, tucked away in the corner, they could see Misaki. Couldn't possibly have been there. Misaki's face was pale, like a corpse, and smiling like everybody else's. Chapter 1. April. I'm gonna silence that. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Oh, there we go. Spring came. I turned 15, and right after that, my lung collapsed. It was the third day after I left Tokyo, arrived in Yomiyama, and began leeching off my maternal grandparents. I was supposed to start at middle school in town on the fourth day, despite the fact that it was a little late in the term to be transferring somewhere. But just my luck, it happened the night before. April 20th, 1998. Monday, which was supposed to be my first day of my new school, a day for me to make a fresh start, turned out to be the first day of my second ever hospitalization. My first experience had been 6 months earlier. Now, just like then, I'm back in the hospital because my left lung collapsed. They told me you'll be hospitalized in a week. Maybe 10 days. For a week. Maybe 10 days. My grandmother, Tammy, arrived at the hospital earlier that morning. When she gave me the news, and I was already feeling isolated in the bed of the hospital rooms, to which I'd only been admitted, I fought back a pain in my chest, a suffocating feeling that seemed unlikely to ever subside. The doctor said there's most likely no need for surgery, but they're going to start a drainage treatment. I believe that'll be this afternoon. Oh, okay. A few hours earlier, when the ambulance brought me in, the smothering pain in my chest had been fierce. After resting for a bit, I felt as if it was getting better. To be honest, it was still pretty bad. The x-ray image of one of my lungs, shriveled up in a weird twist, flashed through my mind. Not that I wanted it to. I feel just as terrible for you. So soon after you came here. Oh, I'm sorry, Grandma. Now, really, there's no need for you to feel bad about. You can't help being ill. My grandmother looked into my face and smiled, and the wrinkles from her eyes deepened twice as much. She had turned 63 this year, but she still seemed sprightly, and she was very kind to her grandson. This, even though we had almost never spoken alone together, nor been close to one another. What about Reiko? She wasn't late to work, was she? She's just fine. She stays focused. That girl. She went home, and then took off at the same time she always does. Could you tell Reiko that, I'm sorry for all the trouble? Late the night before, out of nowhere, I was struck by the familiar symptoms. There was a disturbing gurgling sensation coming from inside my chest. That unique, splitting pain, and then the tightness. The moment I realized it's happening again, I run with the SOS, half panicked, to Reiko, who had still been awake in the living room. There were 11 years between my mother, who had died, and this younger sister of hers, which makes her my aunt. As soon as I told her what was happening, my aunt called an ambulance. And she even went with me to the hospital. Thank you, Reiko. I owe you. I wanted to proclaim my gratitude in my loudest voice, but in my condition I was in too much pain to think about doing that. Not to mention I had trouble talking to her face to face. I don't know, I just get really nervous. I brought you a change of clothes. If there's anything else you need, you let me know. Thank you. I thanked my grandmother in a rasping voice when she set a large paper bag down by the bed. The pain seemed to increase when I shifted inattentively, so I lifted my chin slightly towards her and kept my head on the pillow. Grandma? What about my dad? I haven't told him yet. Do you suppose Yosuke is in India by now? I'm not sure how to reach him. I'll ask Reiko tonight. And that's okay. I'll get in touch with him. If you just bring me the cell phone I left in my room... Oh! Is that so? My dad's name is Yosuke Sakakibara. He works for some famous university in Tokyo doing research for cultural anthropology or socioecology or something like that. He became a full professor in his early 40s, so he's got to be a pretty exceptional researcher. Still, I can't help but harbor some pretty significant doubts about how exceptional he is as a father. Anyway, he doesn't live at home anymore. He casts off his only son and leaves the house empty while he flies around Japan and other countries doing I don't even know what. Field work, I guess. Thanks to that, ever since elementary school, I've had this weird confidence, but my ability to keep house, at least, is better than any of my fellow students. Like my grandmother said, my dad had gone to India the previous week for work. The job had come up with practically no notice during my spring vacation. He would be staying in India and devoting himself to surveys and research for almost a year. And those were the basic circumstances that led me to being taken to my grandparents' home in North Yomiyama, with hardly any warning. Koichi, are you and your father getting along? My grandmother asked. Sure, I guess, I replied. Even if I thought it was tough having him for a father, it's not as if I hated him. Still, Yosuke is such a dutiful man. She sounded as if she was speaking mostly to herself. All this time has passed since Ritsuko died, and yet he still hasn't remarried. He does so much to help us too. At least a word from us. Ritsuko is my mom's name. 15 years ago, the year I was born, she passed away at the young age of 26. My father Yosuke was 10 years older than her. So 36. Okay. From what I'd heard, my dad first saw my mom when he was working as a lecturer at his school, and she was one of his students. He won her over almost as soon as they met. You work fast, as one of his old friends said when he was visiting our house one time, teasing my dad relentlessly. The guy seemed drunk. Excuse me for a moment. I need to let my cat in. My other cat, Perry. Sweetheart. Oh, Perry. In his little spots. Feel comfortable. Okay. Here, sweet baby. Okay. Back to reading. Oh my goodness. Okay, where was I? Actually, a good place to stop so I can drink some water. Get some fluid hydration. That good old hydration. It was hard to conceive that my dad had lived without any women in his life since my mother. I'll admit I'm speaking as his son, But he's a talented researcher, and even though he's 51 years old, he's a youthful man with a sweet personality and is fairly handsome too. He's got a pretty good position in society and makes decent money. And since he's single on top of all that, I can't really believe he's not more popular. Was he fulfilling an obligation to his deceased wife, or being considerate of my feelings? Whatever it was, it had been long enough. I wanted him to get married again sometime and stop pushing the work of managing his household off on me. And that probably accounted for over half of my feelings on the subject. A collapsed lung is in fact a condition called spontaneous pneumothorax, more correctly referred to as primary spontaneous pneumothorax. It's common among young men who have a tall, thin body type. The cause is pretty much unknown, but it's said that in more than a few cases, fatigue or stress can be a trigger, in combination with the person's basic physique. Just like it sounds, collapse means that part of the lung ruptures and air leaks into the pleural cavity. The balance of pressure gets messed up, and the lung withers up like a balloon with a hole in it. It's associated with chest pain and difficulty breathing. This illness, the mere thought of which is terrifying. It was 6 months ago, in October of last year, when I first experienced it. At first, a weird pain started in my chest. I felt as though if I moved, I would immediately lose my breath. I thought if I had just waited it out, it would get better. But after a couple of days, I still hadn't improved. In fact, it was getting worse and worse. So I told my dad about it and we went to the hospital. As soon as they took an x-ray, it became clear that my left lung had undergone a pneumothorax. It was in an intermediate state of collapse. I was hospitalized the same day. The lead physician decided to give me a treatment called pleural drainage. I was given a local anesthetic, and then they cut my chest open with a scalpel and inserted a thin tube called a trousseau catheter in my pleural cavity. The treatment continued for a full week until my collapsed lung reinflated to its original shape and the hole sealed up. And then I was released after life. At the time, the physician used the words full recovery, but in the same breath he told us the chance of reoccurrence is 50%. Back then, I tried not to think too deeply about how much of a risk that was. About all I did was acknowledge that, okay, I might end up like that again someday, but I never thought I would face this miserable fate again so quickly and with such bad timing. To be honest, I was pretty depressed. After my grandmother went home, first thing that afternoon I was called to the treatment room in the internal medicine department. There they began the pleural drainage, just like 6 months before. Probably the lead physician wasn't horrible. The pain had been incredible when they shoved the tube into me 6 months ago. But this time, it wasn't bad at all. However, just like last time, the air escaped through the tube, my lung reinflated, and then the hole all closed up. I'd be set for a welcome release. But they told me that with the condition, when the condition has recurred once already like this, the risk of another relapse is even higher. If it kept happening, they would have to consider surgery. Hearing that made me even more depressed. My grandmother came again that evening and brought me my cell phone. I would tell my dad what was going on in the morning. That's why I decided. It wasn't as if rushing to tell him would change anything. My condition wasn't life-threatening, and there was no need to worry him by letting him hear how feeble my voice was. The respirator beside my bed emitted a soft huffing, the sound of the air sucked out of my chest being expelled through water. I remember the generic warning label that said, "May interfere with medical devices," and turned my cell phone off. Then, feeling annoyed by the familiar pain and tightness, I looked out the window of my room. I was in the municipal hospital's inpatient ward. An old 5-story building. My room was on the 4th floor. I could see the hazy points of white illumination below the darkening sky. There were city lights from a tiny mountain town where Ritsuka, the mother I only knew from photographs, had been born and raised, Yoyama. How many times have I visited this town now? The thought idly flitted across my consciousness. There were only a very few instances that I remember. I don't recall much from when I was little. Maybe 3 or 4 times in elementary school. And was this the first time since starting middle school? Or perhaps not. I was pondering that maybe not when my mind ground to an abrupt halt. A deep noise was building out of nowhere. It hung over me. That silt was crushing me. Unconsciously, I let out a small sigh. The anesthetic was worn off. The incision below my armpit where the tube had been inserted was throbbing, mingling with the ever-present chest pain. My grandmother came to see me every day after that. The hospital was pretty far from home, I thought, but she would laugh lightly and tell me it wasn't much trouble since she drove herself. Here was a grandmother you could count on. Although, stuff at home was probably getting neglected at least a little bit, and she must have been worried about my grandfather Ryohei, who has been getting a little senile lately. I felt terrible regardless. Thank you, Grandma. I couldn't help expressing a profound gratitude in my heart. And time for another little drink. The effects of pleural drainage were going according to the schedule, and on my 3rd day in the hospital, the pain pretty much subsided too. The problem that arose then was the sheer boredom. I still couldn't even walk around on my own. For one thing, my body remained linked to the machine via a tube. Additionally, I had an IV drip twice a day. It was pretty tough getting to the bathroom, and of course, I haven't been able to shower for a couple of days. Ew. Our character's a little smelly. My room was small. My room was a small one-person deal that included a little coin-operated TV. But even if I turned it on, only boring shows air on in the middle of the day. Should I give up and watch anyway, or read one of the books that my grandmother brought for me, or listen to music? This was how I passed the time that no one would have called relaxing, and idleness. On my 6th day in the hospital, April 25th, a Saturday afternoon, Reiko came to my room. I'm so sorry, I haven't been able to come see you, Koichi. She told me apologetically that she had got home from work late during the week, no matter how hard she tried, but of course I understood that perfectly well. If I complained about it, I had been the one who needed to apologize. With as much cheerfulness as I could manage, I told her about my condition and how I was recovering. About the lead physician's prediction, which I had received that morning, that if everything went well, I'd be discharged early next week, and at the latest, definitely sometime that month. Then you should be able to go back to school after Golden Week, huh? After the first week of May? Reiko turned her gaze to the window. I was sitting up in my bed, so my gaze naturally followed hers. This hospital is built on a hill near the mountain called Gaoka. Okay, that's a hill. At the eastern edge of town. Well, look. What you see over there is a bunch of mountains to the west. And there is also a place called the Samidai over there. What are their names? Yumigaoka, because you get to see a gorgeous view of the setting sun. And Asami, because you get a gorgeous view of the sunrise. I guess that's where the names come from. But the name of the town is Yomiyama, right? And there's a mountain that's actually called Yomiyama in north of here. And the town is on that basin. But the entire thing consists of gentle hills running north and south. I didn't have a complete grasp of the fundamental geography of the town yet. Maybe Reiko had noticed, which I had promptly which prompted her simplistic tour. Maybe she thought seeing the view out the window, that this presented the perfect opportunity. Do you see that over there? Reiko raised her right hand and pointed. That green bit running all the way north and south? That's the Yomiyama River that runs through the middle of town. On the other side of it, do you see? That's the field at school. Can you make it out? I lifted the top half of my body off the bed and squinted in the direction that Reiko was pointing. Oh, that wide spot? That wide white spot? That's it. Reiko turned back towards me and smiled faintly. That's Yomiyama North Middle, the school you'll be attending. Interesting. You went to a private school in Tokyo, right? One of those escalator schools with integrated middle and high schools? Yeah, I guess. You might feel a little out of place at public school, but you'll do fine, won't you? Probably, yeah. You're going to be behind in work for April, and what with the sudden hospitalization. Oh, I'm not worried about that. At my last school, we were already halfway done with the stuff for third-year middle school. Wow, impressive. Studying's going to be such a breeze for you. I don't know if it'll be that easy. I suppose I'm obligated to tell you to not get cocky. Did you go to that school, Reiko? Yep. I graduated 14 years ago, I think it was. Now you're going to figure out how old I am. So then my mom went there too. Yep. Ritsuko came out of North Middle too. There's also a school called Yomiyama South Middle in town, which is South Middle. Some people also call it North Middle. They'll call North Middle North Yomi. North Yomi? Oh, I get it. Reiko, dressed in a black pantsuit and beige blouse, had a slender build and a fair-skinned, slender face. Her thick, straight hair grew past her shoulders. With that haircut, her features seemed somehow to resemble my mother's, whose face I knew only from photographs. When that realization struck me, every atom of my heart began to ache helplessly, as if infused with flush of fever. I said that I'm bad talking to Reiko face-to-face like this because I get nervous. That's 8/10 of the problem. And this was probably the root. I guess if you're not worried about the schoolwork, then the problem really will be the difference in how they do things at public school. You'll probably be confused about some things at first, but I'm sure you'll get through them soon enough. And then Reiko told me that once I came home from the hospital and could start attending school, she would tell me the North Yomi fundamentals. Then her eyes fell to the paperbacks on my bedside table. Huh? I didn't know you liked these kind of books, Koichi. Oh, I guess. There were 4 books in it all. They were both long books broken into 2 volumes, Salem's Lot and Pet Cemetery by Stephen King. I finished the first volume of Pet Cemetery right before Reiko came by. In that case, I'll tell you about the 7 mysteries of North Yomi too. The 7 mysteries? Every school has them, but North Yomi's are a little bit different. It's gone up to more than 8 since I went there. You're not interested? Honestly, I didn't really care about the real-life ghost stories like that. No, you definitely gotta tell me, I replied, crafting a smile for her. Before lunch the next day, the 26th, a Sunday. Like always, my grandmother had come to present me with miscellaneous odds and ends. Then with a formulated, "All right, I'll see you again tomorrow," she left me and returned home. She must have passed right by then. I never would have expected or even thought to dream up of these visitors who had come to see me. There was a knock, and the door in my room opened. It was a young nurse named Mizuno, whom I had been relying on completely ever since I'd been admitted. "Go ahead," she said, ushering them in. A boy and a girl I had never met before in my life. I was, of course, surprised. But since they were both roughly my age and wearing school uniforms, I soon guessed it was a visit. I soon guessed where this visit had originated. "Hello. You're Koichi Sakakibara, right?" The ambassador, or so it felt to me, on the right spoke. The boy. Medium build, medium height. Black school uniform with a sand-green collar. Silver-rimmed glasses accenting a smooth, soft-featured face, narrowed eyes. We're students from Yomiyama North Middle, third year, class 3. Hi. My name is Kazumi. Tomihiko Kazumi. And this is Sakuragi. And this is Sakuragi. Yukari Sakuragi. Nice to meet you. The girl wore a heavy blazer. They were both completely wearing the middle school uniforms. But the style was totally different from the private school I had attended in Tokyo. Sakuragi and I are the class representatives for class 3, so we come on everyone's behalf. From the perch in my bed, I grunted and cocked my head and asked the most obvious question. Why are you here? You're transferring to our school, right? Yukari Sakuragi asked. She too wore silver-rimmed glasses, just like Kazumi. She had a slightly chubby build and a simple haircut that came to her shoulders. You were actually supposed to start last Monday, and then you got sick all of a sudden. That's what we heard, so we decided to visit you as class representatives. This is from all of us. She held out a bouquet of colorful tulips. Tulips mean considerateness, or philanthropy. I learned that later when I looked it up. The teacher was asking how you were doing too. Tomihiko Kazumi continued. We heard it was a lung condition called pneumothorax. Are you alright? Oh yeah, thanks. As I answered, I stifled a smile that was rising on my face. I've been caught off guard by their sudden visit, but I was also genuinely pleased by it. Plus, the way the two of them came here was so picturesque. They almost seemed like class representatives. Characters you'd see in an anime or something, so it also struck me as oddly amusing. Fortunately, I guess that's what I'm supposed to say, even in a situation like this, I'm recuperating on schedule, so I think they'll be able to take the tube out soon. That's a relief. What a horrible thing to happen so suddenly. As they spoke, the two emissaries of third year class 3 looked at each other. We heard that you moved here from Tokyo, Sakakibara, Sakuragi said, as she set the tulips on the windowsill. For some reason, it sounded as if she was gently feeling me out. I nodded. Yeah. You are at K... asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I'm just gonna say the asterisk because apparently it's censored, so I guess it's a reference to an actual school. You were at K... asterisk, 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 middle school, weren't you? That's amazing. It's such a famous private school. Why did you... We came here for family reasons. Is this the first time living in Yomiyama? It is, but why do you ask that? I just thought maybe you lived here, even if it was a long time ago. I visited before, but I never lived here. Did you ever stay for very long? Kazumi came up with a follow-up question. What a weird question. The thought nagged me slightly. Then I gave a vague response. My mom is from here. I guess when I was a little late. I guess when I was little I might have, but I wouldn't remember. The rapid-fire interrogation ended there. Kazumi walked towards the bed. Here. He pulled a large envelope from his bag and handed it to me. What's this? Notes for classes since the start of first semester. I made a copy, so if you want them, you can have them. Wow, you didn't have to do that. Thank you. When I peeked at the contents of the envelope in my hand, I saw it was indeed all stuff I had already learned at my old school. Still, his consideration touched me, and I thanked him again. If this was how it was going to be, could I actually be able to forget all that terrible stuff that had been happening since the previous year? I think I'll be able to look forward to school once we get back from Golden Week. I'm looking forward to it. Us too. I thought I saw Kazumi shoot Sakuragi a wink. Then, with a vaguely hesitant expression, he held his right hand out to me. Sakakibara? Would you like to shake hands? That left me speechless for a second. Shake hands? The boy who was class representative and suddenly asking to shake hands. The first time we'd ever met each other in a place like this. What did that even... I considered that maybe I should just let it go and say, well, public school students are different. Or maybe it was a difference between Tokyo and the countryside. A difference in attitudes. The thought went around and around in my head, but I could hardly reject it and say, no. I played it innocent and extended my right hand too. There wasn't much force behind Kazumi's handshake, even though he was the one who'd offered. Maybe it was my imagination, but I thought I felt a dampness, as if he was in a cold sweat. And obligatory break drink. Ooh, gray screen. Okay. My stay in the hospital on Monday was the day of Ma's liberation. When they confirmed that the leak of air from my lung had stopped completely, they took out the drainage tube. This meant I was finally free from my link to the machine. When the procedure wrapped up in the morning, I left my room to escort my visiting grandmother out of the building so I could breathe the open air for the first time in a long while. According to the doctor, they would watch my condition for another 2 days, and if there was no change, I could be released. But I would have to rest as much as possible for a time. I understood that part painfully well without having to be told, given my experience 6 months earlier. So I couldn't go to school until May 6th, after the break after all. I watched my grandmother's rugged, inky black Nissan Cedric drive off, and I sat down on a bench I had found on the front lawn of the inpatient ward. It was beautiful weather, befitting of the day of my liberation. Warm spring sunbeams, brisk, cool breeze. I could hear the chirping of wild birds here and there, probably because the mountains were so close by. I even heard the cry of the warbler, a sound unheard of in Tokyo, occasionally cutting into other songs. I closed my eyes and took slow, deep breaths. The place where the tube had ached me. With chest pain, and difficulty breathing disappeared completely. Yeah, this is good. How wondrous it seemed to be healthy. After sinking into a momentary swirl of emotion that I wouldn't exactly call youthful, I took out my cell phone, which I had brought with me from my room. It seemed like a good enough time to call my dad. I was outside the building, so I didn't have to be worried about warnings against interfering with medical devices and whatever. I was pretty sure the time difference between Japan and India was 3 hours, or maybe 4. It was after 11 o'clock where I was, so 7 or 8 o'clock there. After some hesitation, I ended up turning off the cell phone, and I just activated. I knew very well how my dad slept in the morning. He was probably pretty tired with his survey research activities in a foreign country, too. It would have been cruel to rouse him from bed after all this time. I sat on the bench, zoning out for a while after that. When I got to my feet, it was because lunchtime was approaching. I want to be clear, the hospital food did not taste good. For a 15-year-old recovering from illness, hunger is a life-or-death issue. I went back to the inpatient ward, cut through the lobby, and headed to the elevator bay. The doors to one elevator were just starting to close, so I squeezed past them. Oh, excuse me. I apologized offhandedly for my injured head. But the moment I lay down into this other person, I couldn't help gasping. It was a girl in a school uniform. The same navy blazer as Yukari Sakuraki had worn when she visited the day before. Did that mean this girl was also going to Yomiyama Middle School? Shouldn't she have been at school this time of day? She was petite and slightly built with an androgynous face, the bone structure of which was way too fine. Pure black hair in a shaggy bob cut. Her skin color was quite washed out, in contrast. I'm not sure what to call it, but it looked like quite paraffin. To use a somewhat old-fashioned term, plus. The thing that caught my attention more than anything was the white eye patch bandaging her left eye. Did she have some kind of eye disease? Or was she hurt? With my mind catching up on all these thoughts, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassingly slow to realize the direction the elevator had chosen was traveling. It was going down, not up. I wasn't headed for the upper floors, and the cart started moving towards the basement. I looked up at the button sprayed on the control panel and saw that B12 was lit up. Letting my own button selection slide, I seized on an impulse and spoke to the girl with the eye patch. I'm sorry, are you a student at North Yomi? The girl barely nodded her head, silent, showing no hint of any other movement. You're going to the second basement level? Is there something we need to do down there? There we go. Yes. But it's not I'm dropping something off. Her tone of voice was cool and detached, as if all her emotions had been shut off. Half of my body is waiting there. Poor thing. While I stood bewildered by those enigmatic thoughts, by those enigmatic words, the elevator stopped and doors opened. The girl in the eye patch slipped silently past me and went out into the hallway, her footsteps making no sound. Something sickly pale protruded through a gap in her hands, pressed slightly against her chest. My eyes fixed on it. I could see something pale, a tiny doll hand. Hey! I held the elevator doors open and stuck my head and shoulders out to call after the girl. What's your name? The girl, the only person walking down the dimly lit hallway, reacted to my voice and came to a momentary standstill, but she didn't turn around. Nay, she answered curtly. Nay, Misaki. Then the girl walked away, as if gliding over the linoleum floor. I watched her go, not breathing, while experiencing a touch of despondency and at the same time a foreboding that I could hardly find words to describe. The second basement level of the inpatient ward. I didn't think there were exam rooms or nursing rooms on this floor, let alone patients' rooms. It was knowledge I had absorbed naturally while hospitalized. All that was down there was the food storage rooms, the mechanical rooms, and I was pretty sure the memorial chapel. In any event, this was the first up-close encounter I shared with the strange girl May. By the time I learned that Misaki was written with the characters for viewing the cliffs and May was sound, April had ended and May had just barely begun. Alright, I'm going to take this moment to take a very quick break before we go into Chapter 2, and I will be right back very shortly. Alright? Thank you so much for your patience, everyone. Alright, so let's get back into reading. And we're at a really good spot. We are at chapter 2. So, let me see. I probably should have grabbed my drink break while I was on my break. I'm sorry, give me one moment. Ooh. Narrating takes a lot in your throat. I hope that my narration is, like, entertaining. This is purely experimental, my first time doing this, so I hope this is looking as good and as, as entertaining as it is comforting or anything. So, alright, let's get back into this. Chapter 2, May 1st. Morning, Ray. I admit it was adorable, but the more I heard it, the more oddly unsettling the shrill voice became. I don't know what it was thinking about, but it's such a pain having someone come at you that cheerfully so early in the morning. Ray! Morning, Ray! Ray is supposed to be your name. But of course, my grumbling had no impact. Because the object of my frustration wasn't a person, it was a bird. The miniature bird my grandparents kept as a pet. My grandmother said it was so small, it was probably a female, and they named it Ray. It was, and this gets another probably attached, at 2 years old. They bought it on impulse at a pet shop in the fall 2 years ago. The square cage in which she, probably, lived was on one end of the porch facing the garden. Apparently it was a special cage for merino birds, made of thick bamboo strips. Morning, Ray. Morning. May 6th, Wednesday morning. I had woken up a particularly early hour, just after 5 a.m. During my 10 days of hospitalization, a well-regulated lifestyle of early to bed and early to rise had been insulated me. Wow, that's a strange phrase to use for that. Anyways, but 5 a.m. was too early for everyone. It had been well past midnight the night before when I went to bed, so for a 15-year-old boy who was trying to get healthy, the lack of sleep was egregious too. Just one more hour, I thought, closing my eyes. But I didn't think I was going to fall back asleep again. I gave up after 5 minutes, got out of bed, and headed to the bathroom in my pajamas. Well, Koichi, you're up early. When I washed my face and brushed my teeth, my grandmother came out of her bedroom. She looked me over, then tilted her head, appearing slightly concerned. You feel alright, don't you? I feel fine. I just woke up is all. That's alright then. You shouldn't push yourself. Like I said, I'm fine. I gave her an easy smile and thumped myself on the chest. Then, it happened just as I returned to my bedroom, while I was thinking about how I killed the time before breakfast. My cell phone, which I had connected to its charger, started ringing on my desk. What was that at this hour? I only wondered for a moment. There was only one person who would make this a call at such an ungodly hour. Hey there! Morning! How are you doing? The funny voice I heard when I picked up the phone belonged, just as I predicted, to my dad. Excuse me. It's 2 in the morning here. India sure is hot. What's up? Nothing's up. You're starting school today, right? I'm calling to cheer you on. You should thank me. Oh, yeah. How are you feeling, physically? Have you been resting since you got out of the hospital, after all? His voice suddenly started to crackle and almost cut out as he began to ask me a question. I checked the LCD screen, and the bars showing the signal strength were barely holding at 1. Even that one flickered in and out unreliably. Are you listening to me, Koichi? Hold on, I'm not getting a good signal here. I left my room as I answered, wandering around searching for a spot where the signal seemed good. And the spot I found was on the porch of the first floor where Ray's miniature cage sat. Physically, I'm good. There's nothing for you to worry about. I answered the question I put on hold as I opened the glass door to the porch. I called them the day I left the hospital to tell them about my current attack and its treatment. Still, why are you calling so early? It's 5:30 here. Still, why are you calling so early? It's only 5:30 here. You must be nervous heading to a new school. Plus, you're getting over your illness on top of everything. And that's why you woke up so early, right? Oh man, he knows me well. That's just how you are. You try to be so tough, but in reality, you have pretty thin skin. Take after my dad that way. Don't you mean I take after my mom? Well, that may be, but... Changing his tone somewhat, my dad continued. As far as this pneumothorax issue goes, you shouldn't brood over it more than necessary. When I was young, I did that. What? You did? I never heard that story before. I missed my chance to tell you 6 months ago. I didn't want to be told it was hereditary or something. Hereditary? My second one happened a year later, but after that, I never had such another reoccurrence. If there is some hereditary link, then you should be out of the woods by now, too. That'd be nice, anyway. It's a lung disease. Now you have to quit smoking. I don't smoke. At any rate, just tell yourself you're not going to have a third one, and keep your chin up. Although no need to stress yourself trying. I know. I'll take it easy. Good. Say hello to Grandma and Grandpa for me. India's so hot. And so the call ended. Letting out a long breath, I went through the door I opened and sat down on the porch. As soon as I did, the minya bird, Ray, it started up with her bizarre voice again, as if she had been lying in wait. Morning, Ray. Morning. I ignored it for a little while, staring outside idly. The full bloom of the red azalea hedges was beautiful through the thin morning mist that was rising. There was a modest pond in the garden, and I heard that my grandfather used it to keep koi in it, but I couldn't see any fish there now. It looked as though it wasn't being sufficiently cared for. The water was murky, dark green in color. Ray! Morning! The minya bird kept talking so persistently that she, probably, beat me down and I replied, all right, I get it. Good morning, Ray. You sure are cheery first thing in the morning, Ray. Cheery. She ran through her repertoire of words. Cheery. Cheer up. I don't think I need to say that this did constitute anything as grandiose as human avian communication, but still, I felt a little bit more like smiling. Okay, thanks. Alright, small drink break. There. Mind you, I'm drinking water and also Monster Energy in the same breath. Do not try this at home. Or do. It's actually not too bad. Okay. After dinner the night before, I had talked with Reiko for a while. Hello there, Invictus Skull. Welcome. Invictus Skull. Welcome. We're just doing a simple reading stream. Nothing too crazy, just relaxing, cozy vibes. That's all. After dinner the night before, I had talked with Reiko for a while. Hi there! Thank you so much for... Oh my goodness, thank you so much for following Invictus Skull. It's great to have you here. After dinner the night before, I had talked with Reiko for a while. She was using the snug little side house behind the main building as a home office bedroom, and would often shut herself up in there after coming home from work. But of course, there were also days when she didn't do that. The night when I'd have my pneumothorax attack, she'd been watching TV in the living room. It's just that there were exactly 0 times that we gathered as a family around the table for dinner. Do you want to hear about the 7 mysteries in North Yomi? My rescheduled first day at school was the following day, after the break ended, and of course, Reiko knew that. She'll probably remember the promise she made when she came to see me at the hospital. I told you that North Yomi was a little different, right? Yeah, you mentioned that. Once my grandmother finished cleaning up after dinner, she made coffee for us. Reiko took a sip of hers, which was black. I'm sorry, I lost my place for a second there. Well, do you want to hear about it? She fixed her eyes on me from across the table and smiled faintly. As usual, I was plenty nervous under the surface, but I accepted her challenge. Yeah. But, it wouldn't be much fun hearing all of that at once. She said North Yomi was different, but it was probably just variations of the same old ghost stories. A staircase somewhere in the school building gets an extra step, or it loses one, or the plaster sculptures in the art room cry tears of blood, or whatever. 1 or 2 at least. If I knew about them, maybe I could kick off conversations with my new classmates, I thought. Alright, then I'll tell you the one I heard first, a long time ago at least. What Reiko told me then was a mystery, quote-unquote, involving the shed for raising animals that was used behind the gymnasium. One morning, all the rabbits and marmots they had been keeping in there disappeared. The door to the shed was broken, and there were smears from a huge amount of blood inside. The school contacted the police. Wow, that was a strange way of saying contacted. I'm sorry about that, guys. Contacted the police, which started a big uproar. But they never found a single one of the animals that had disappeared, and never discovered who had committed the act. The shed was torn down soon after, but in the place the shed had once been, blood-splattered rabbits and marmots, or their ghosts, could be seen sometimes. There's a strange embellishment to the story, Reiko continued with a serious expression. When the police tested the blood marks left on the shed, they found it wasn't rabbit blood or marmot blood. It was human. Type AB RH negative. When I heard that, I couldn't help murmuring, wow, was there anybody in the area who had been badly hurt? Or any missing persons? Oh! Hi there, Wonder is more. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for following. Welcome to the Coven. And you are safe here, and this is a welcome space. There we go. Not a single one. Come on, isn't that mysterious? But that embellishment is more like a detective story than a ghost story. There might have been a concrete solution to it. I wonder. After that, Reiko did exactly as she promised and told me a few of the North Yomi fundamentals. In quotes. First, if you're on the roof and you hear the calling of a crow, when you go back inside, you must enter with your left foot. Second, when you become a 3rd year, you must not fall down on the road that goes down the hill outside the back gates. And those two sounded more like superstitions that had been passed down for a long time. If you disobeyed the first and didn't go inside with your left foot, you would get hurt within a month. If you disobeyed the second and fell down the hill, you would fail your high school entrance exams. And that was what people were warned. Next, the third broke the mold and was unpleasantly realistic, fundamental, quote-unquote. You must at all costs obey whatever the class decides. Reiko said it with her serious expression unchanged. The school you went to in Tokyo, K** Middle School, had a pretty liberal atmosphere, despite being a private escalator school. Am I right? They valued the individual desires of each student. At a public school in the countryside like North Yomi, it's pretty much the opposite. How something affects a group is more important than the individual. So essentially, even if there's some issue you find kind of distasteful, you close your eyes and go along with everyone else? That wasn't much tough advice. There were times I had tried to do that at my other school too, to one extent or another. I lowered my eyes slightly and brought my coffee cup to my lips. Reiko kept on talking, looking serious. The fourth fundamental at North Yomi. Koichi! I heard my grandmother's cheery voice, breaking off my quiet reflections. I'm just gonna take a short drink break. I apologize. Give me one moment. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. Sorry for spazzing out for a second there. Okay, back to this. I lowered my eyes slightly and brought the coffee cup to my lips. Oh, already went tap in. I heard my grandmother's cheery voice breaking off my quiet reflections. Oh. Hi. I was sitting on the porch, hugging my knees, still in my pajamas. The tranquil morning air and the placid sunlight felt good, and somehow I wound up rooted in the spot. Time for breakfast, Koichi. It sounded as if she was at the bottom of the stairs, calling up from the second floor. Time for breakfast already? I considered and looked at the clock on the wall. It was before 7 o'clock. Wait, what? That might have been sitting here staring into space for a whole hour. What's wrong with me? It's time to eat, Koichi. And this time I heard not my grandmother, but my grandfather's croaking voice from somewhere nearby. Oh, I gotta develop a new voice. It's time to eat, Koichi. I heard the voice from the 8-mat room on the other side of the screens dividing the porch. I hadn't noticed at all, but my grandfather had come in at some point. When I opened the screen gingerly, he was sitting in front of the Buddhist altar set up there, wearing a thin brown cardigan over his night clothes. Oh, good morning, Grandpa. Yes. Good morning, my grandfather replied in a drawl. Are you going to the hospital again, Koichi? Come on, Grandpa. I was released already. I'm going to school today. School? Oh, to school. Yes, that's right. My grandfather was extremely small in stature. When he sat on the floor hunched over in a ball, he looked like a wrinkly monkey decorating the altar. He was over 70 years old, I'm pretty sure. He'd aged noticeably in the last 2 or 3 years, and he'd started to show signs of senility. Wow, that's a new word. Hi. Senility in just about every aspect of his behavior. You're in middle school now, are you, Koichi? Yeah, my 3rd year. Next year is high school. My. I wonder if Yosuke is staying healthy. He's in India right now. He called me a little while ago, and he's the same as ever. Good health is more important than anything. If only poor Ritsuko hadn't. At the sudden mention of my mom's name, he put his fingertips to his eyes and wiped away tears. Had the memory of his daughter's death 15 years ago come back to haunt him so vividly? That sort of thing might happen a lot with older folks, but I didn't have the slightest idea how I should handle it, since I only knew my mother's face from photographs. Ah, here you are. Finally, my grandmother came and saved me from my quandary. It's time for breakfast, Koichi. Why don't you go change and get your things together? Oh yeah, where's Reiko? She left already. Oh, she goes in early, huh? I stood up and closed the glass doors of the porch. I'll drive you in today, my grandmother said. Huh? You don't have to do that. I looked up how to get to school. It was far enough that it would take a little less than an hour to go on foot. But if I took the bus, I could cut it down to 20 or 30 minutes. Today's your first day. Besides, you're still recovering. Isn't that right, Grandpa? Oh yes, that's right. But no need to be polite. No need to be polite. Come on already, hurry up and get dressed. You still need to eat your breakfast. Okay. Without forgetting my phone, which I had tossed aside, I left the porch. Just then, the Maria bird had stayed quiet for so long suddenly exclaimed in a shrill voice, "Why, Ray? Why?" The teacher in charge of third year class 3 was Mr. Kubadera. He was a middle-aged man whose subject was language arts. You could call him good-natured, he seemed to be, and you could have called him unreliable, since he certainly looked the part. When I went to the teacher's office to say hello, Mr. Kubadera glanced over at the papers in front of him. "You did excellently at your last school, I must say, Sakakibara. To get the grades like these at K** Middle School is no small feat." Granted, it was our first meeting, but why would he speak so deferently to a student? Plus, he hadn't looked me in the face the entire time. I felt kind of uncomfortable, but nevertheless, I wouldn't be less polite than he was. I would be no less polite than he was. "Thank you very much. That's kind of you to say," I replied. "You're doing all right now, physically?" "Yes, thank you." "I'm sure I did things differently where you're from, but I hope you'll get along with everyone. We may be a public school, but we don't have problems of violence or disorderly classroom conduct the way the public imagines. So there's no need to worry on that score. If you run into any problems, please let me know. Don't be shy. You can talk to me or my assistant." Mr. Kubadera's eyes turned to a younger woman at his side who had been watching our conversation. "Miss Mikami, of course." "I will," I said with a nod, feeling enormously nervous for my school transfer. For my transfer, my dad bought me a brand new school uniform. Life expectancy 1 year, but it wasn't broken in yet, so naturally, it felt tight. "I look forward to your class." My voice was keyed up with nerves, but I bowed to Miss Mikami. Her subject was art. Miss Mikami smiled gently. "We'll have a good year." Yes, ma'am." The conversation broke off and surrendered to a brittle silence. The two teachers stole glances back and forth, trying to read each other's faces. Then both of them opened their mouths to say something, or so it seemed, but just then, a warning bell for the classes rang. They closed their mouths as if the opportunity had passed, or so it seemed. "Well then, shall we?" Mr. Kubadera picked up his attendance sheet and stood. "Morning homeroom starts at 8:30. Let's introduce you to everyone." When they led me to the door of the classroom for third year class 3, the two teachers shot each other another look and opened their mouths once more to say something, or so it seemed, but this time it was the actual bell that rang, giving a single deliberate sounding cough. Mr. Kubadera opened the door of the classroom. The buzz of all the students talking was like static on the radio. Footsteps. Footsteps. The sound of chairs dragging and being sat upon, the sounds of bags opening, the sounds of bags being closed. Mr. Kubadera went before me, then ushered me in with a glance, and I stepped into the classroom. Miss Mikami came in last and stood beside me. "Good morning, everyone." Mr. Kubadera spread his attendance sheet open on the lectern, and then slowly passed his gaze over the room and took attendance. "I see that Akazawa and Takabayashi are out today. Apparently they didn't do the customary stand, greet, sit here. Was this another difference between public and private school, or a local thing? Has everyone recovered from Golden Week yet? Today, we'll begin by introducing a transfer student." The noise gradually died down, and the classroom fell silent. Mr. Kubadera ushered me from the lectern. "Go on," Miss Mikami ordered in a lower voice. I could feel the eyes of class focusing on me. It was almost painful. I took a quick look out across the room and saw that there was about 30 of them. But there was no time to take in more than that as I headed towards the podium. Ugh. This tension in my chest. It's tight. It's getting harder to breathe too. I'd been prepared for something of this kind, but a situation like this was vicious on the delicate nerves of a boy who had just been suffering from a lung condition up until the previous week. Hello. Then I declared my name to my new classmates, who wore black standing collars on navy blazers. Mr. Kubadera wrote out for them on the blackboard, Koichi Sakakibara. I steadied myself forcibly. I was trembling pathetically, and I'm saying that about myself. Searching the mood in the room, but I couldn't detect any worrisome reactions. I came from Yomiyama from Tokyo last month. My dad's working, so I'll be living in here for a while with my grandparents. As I continued my self-introduction, I was mentally rubbing my chest to relax a bit. I was supposed to start school here on the 20th last month, but I got kind of sick and was in the hospital. But I was finally able to come today, so, nice to meet you. Maybe I was supposed to talk about my hobbies, or something I was good at, or my favorite actor, or something like that. No, that was definitely the point where I should have thanked them for the flowers while I was in the hospital. But while I was doing those options over... Alright then, class. Mr. Kubadera picked up from where I dropped off. Starting today, I want you to be nice to Sakakibara and treat him as a new member of Class 3. I'm sure there are a lot of things he's not used to yet, but I want all of you to help him learn. We'll all pitch in to help each other and make this last year of middle school a good one. All of us are going to do our parts, so that next year in March, every person in this class will graduate in good health. Thus went Mr. Kubadera's speech, which sounded as if we were supposed to recite an Amen at the conclusion. As I listened, a nagging itch started up in my back, but every person in the room was listening pretty intently to what he was saying. Just then, I saw a face I recognized in the very first row of seats. It was one of the class representatives who had come by to visit me, Tomohiko Kazumi. When our eyes met, there was something awkward about the smile Kazumi gave me. The memory of the dampness I'd felt when we shook hands in the hospital room came back to me. Unconsciously, I buried my right hand in my pocket. Where's the other one? Yukari Sakuragi. Just as the question occurred to me, Mr. Kubadera said, Okay, Sakakibara, let's have you sit over there. He pointed at a desk. It was on the left-handed side from the lectern, the third desk from the back. On the row farthest to the hallway side of the room was empty. Yes, sir, I replied with a quick bow, and headed to my designated seat. I dropped my bag next to my desk. As I was sitting down, I surveyed the room again from my new vantage point. It was then that I was finally able to isolate her. The student at the desk all the way at the back, in a row to the right of the lectern, next to the windows facing the schoolyard. Looking out from the front of the classroom, the sunlight from the windows had created a strange backlighting right in that spot. That was another reason. So that's why I didn't see her, I thought. Though I moved to my new desk, there was no significant change to the backlighting. Even so, I could see that there was a desk there and somebody was sitting at it. Betraying the image, the words implied the bright light, quote, quote, seemed somehow menacing to me. I'm not sure why or how. It swallowed up the student's body, so I could only make out the figure of the person sitting there as a shadow with an ill-defined outline. Darkness lurking right in the middle of the light. The thought crossed my mind too. Entranced by simultaneous foreboding and hope, which were accompanied by a slight flash of pain, I blinked several times. Each time, the child's outline became more into focus and deepened. The amount of sunlight was fading slightly at last, and that helped too, until finally the figure came into stark resolution. It was her. The girl with the eye patch whom I'd seen in the elevator at the hospital. The girl who walked down the dimly lit hallway in the second basement level, her footsteps making no sound at all. May. I whispered it so no one could hear me. May Misaki. After a short homeroom period that lasted only 10 minutes, Mr. Kubadera kept his place at the lectern, and his assistant, Miss Mikami, left the room. Mr. Kubadera stayed with us because the first period class was the subject he taught. Language Arts with Mr. Kubadera was a dull class, as I had somehow imagined it would be. He was still using the polite manner of speaking, and he lectured his way. That was easy to process. Oh, excuse me. But there wasn't much punch to it, I guess, or he hardly modulated his voice at all. Whatever, it was dull. But of course, I couldn't be honest and display my boredom. That would make a terrible impression, obviously, on the teacher and probably the students too. Struggling against the drowsiness that had me in its grip, I fixed my eyes on the brand new textbook. A short story by the 19th century literary genius in somehow lackluster excerpt. As my eyes ran over the text, my mind was as half on the Stephen King novel I'd started reading, wondering how everything would turn out, though it was impossible to predict. Man, what was going to happen to Paul Sheldon, the popular author who had been imprisoned by his loony #1 fan? That's a reference. That's actually a reference to a book that I was thinking of reading for the stream, but we may read that later on this month. It's up to everybody. Okay. That was Mr. Kubadera's class. But the classroom was oddly quiet, which wasn't like the vague image I had drawn in my mind of a public middle school, quote unquote. Maybe it had been an unwarranted, preconceived bias, or how should I put it? I imagined the atmosphere would be rowdier. But it wasn't, as if everyone was being serious and concentrating either. No one was whispering during class, but looking around, I saw people zoning out and some people whose heads were bobbing and maybe falling. There were even people who were surreptitiously reading a magazine or intent on doodling. I didn't think Mr. Kubadera was the type of teacher who would scold for every little thing, and yet, I wonder what it was. The room's air had a silence deeper than it needed to be. Somehow. No, not the silence. Formality, maybe? Formality. And a strange tension. Yeah, it sort of felt like that. What was this? Could it be? I wondered. Could the presence of an alien element mixed in today, in other words, a transfer student from Tokyo, be the cause? And that slight tension filling the room. No, that kind of thinking is just hyperactive self-consciousness. What about that girl? Mei Misaki. The thought nagged me suddenly, and I looked over at her desk. I saw her there, cheek pressed into her hand as she stared dully out the window. I took the quickest of glances, so I couldn't tell anything more than that. With the amount of backlighting from the sun, my glimpse of her was, in the end, of a shadow that hardly seemed real. The impression was more or less the same in my other classes from second period on, too. There were slight differences with the subject or the teacher, but how should I put it? The thing flowing underneath it all was the same. The strange silence permeating the entire classroom. A formality. A tension. Yes, it was something like that. I couldn't tell anything concrete. Couldn't point to someone acting a certain way, but I definitely felt something like that. As if someone, or maybe everyone, was preoccupied by something, for instance. Maybe without even realizing it? That person, those people, could be thinking about something and not even aware of it. But no. The possibility that I was just imagining things, imagining all of it, was undeniable. I mean, maybe I would get used to it and stop noticing anything. During a break between classes, a couple of students exchanged a few words with me. Every time they called me my name, Sakakibara, even as I privately cringed and prepared myself, I managed to handle it either placidly, amicably, or innocent, or innocuously, at a basic level, or so I thought. Are you over whatever put you in the hospital? Yeah, completely over it. Which is better, Tokyo or here? Tokyo is Tokyo. I don't know, they're not that different, really. Tokyo sure is nice, though. A backward town like Yomiyama just doesn't seem to cut it lately, you know? Tokyo is Tokyo. There's a lot about it that's not so great. Wherever you go, it's nothing but people, and the wards are always swarmed. Never settles down. I guess you feel like that when you live there. I almost think it's better here because it's so much quieter and there's so much more nature here. When I told them that Yomiyama was better than Tokyo, half of me really felt that way, and the other half was trying to convince myself of it. So your dad's a college professor? And he's in some foreign country for research? How did you know that? Mr. Kubara told us. Kubadera told us, so everyone knows. Oh, did he tell you about the school I used to go to too? We know all about that. It was Miss Mikume's idea to send you flowers when you were in the hospital. Really? Hi there, welcome to the stream, and thank you so much for following, oh my goodness. Hello? Goodness, it's not showing up on my chat. Anitzia, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for following the coven. This is a safe place, and you are welcome here. If you ever need anything, feel free to let us know, okay? Really? Man, I wish Miss Mikami was in charge of this class instead. She's gorgeous, and she dresses great. And plus, come on, don't you think so? I really don't know. Come on, you're not... You know, my dad's going to be in India for a year starting this spring. India? I bet you it's even hotter there. Yeah, it's really hot, he says. In the midst of such conversations, something would nag at me, and I would search for Misaki. As it turned out, as soon as the class ended, she would disappear from her seat. But I never spotted her anywhere else inside the classroom either. Did she just always go outside during the break or something? You feeling nervous about something? You keep getting all shifty-eyed. No, it's nothing. Did those notes I brought you in the hospital help? Oh yeah, they were great. You want a quick tour around school during lunch? You're gonna have a ton of problems if you don't know where stuff is. The student who made this offer was a boy named Teshigawara. There was a rule that the students wear name tags during school, so I could tell people's names at a glance without needing introductions. He seemed to be good friends with Tomihiko Kazumi, and Teshigawara had come over with him to talk to me. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, I replied, and glanced casually back over at Misaki's desk. The next class was going to be starting soon, but she still wasn't there. Although, it was at this point that I realized a bizarre fact. Her desk, the farthest seat, 8 back from the row next to the windows facing the schoolyard, was the only one unlike all the other desks in the room. It was incredibly old. I blunted my hunger in a quick blitz at lunchtime. There were a lot of all-boy groups and all-girl groups who pushed their desks together for lunch, but I couldn't quite work myself up to shoving my way in among them, so I bolted down on the lunch my grandmother had given me with the speed of an eating contest. When I stopped to think about it, I realized this was my first time ever eating a homemade lunch at school. I'd eaten school lunches at my old school, and even when there was some event like a field trip or a field day, it had been a foregone conclusion that my lunch would be bought from a convenience store. It was like that all through elementary school, too. Never once had my dad gotten the genius idea that it would be nice to cook something for his motherless son every now and then. And so, it was that my grandmother's homemade lunch truly touched me. Thank you, Grandma. It tasted amazing. As always, I was mentally bowing my head over the empty lunchbox, infusing the gesture with my immense gratitude. Wait a minute. I looked around the room. Where is Mamie Saki? How is she spending her lunch? Sakakibara! A voice called from behind me without warning. At the same moment, someone tapped me lightly on the shoulder, and I tensed more defensively than I should have all day. For no concrete reason, I convinced myself, so it's finally happening. I turned around ready for it, but Teshigawara was standing there. Kazumi was beside him. There was no discernible malice on their faces. Late though I was to realize it, I couldn't help but feel exasperated at my oversensitivity. Like we promised, Teshigawara said, the tour of the school. Oh, that's right. My true feelings on the matter, kind of cynically, were that they didn't need to go through all the trouble of giving me the tour. I could just ask where something was whenever I need to get there, but okay. I couldn't insult the kindness of my new classmates. This is a time to keep a lid on it and just act like a martyr. The three of us all stood up and left the room belonging to third year class 3. Kazumi and Teshigawara were, even at a glance, an odd combo. In contrast to the dead serious class representative-y Kazumi, Teshigawara was a light-hearted character. Though the surname he bore sounded very grand and historical. His hair was bleached brown, and the top 2 or 3 buttons of his uniform were undone. But despite his outward appearance, surprisingly, he lacked the distinctive delinquent slouch. When I asked, they told me that they had been in the same class since their 3rd year in elementary school. Their families also lived really close to each other. When we were kids, we hang out and would go to all sorts of trouble. Then this punk had to go and told an all honor roll-esque and never just wing it with something. Teshigawara was grinning all through this disparagement. When Kazumi didn't offer any particular protest, Teshigawara even said that they'd be better off without each other. But seriously, doesn't that sentiment usually go out for the opposite direction? So the conversation went until I found myself starting to enjoy it too. I've never been very good at dealing with people like Teshigawara, who come at you as though you've been friends your whole life. Though it's not as if I felt driving affinity for honor roll-esque guys like Kazumi either. But well, I decided not to reveal those preferences if I could help it. When my dad came back to Japan next spring, I would go right back to Tokyo. Until then, I wanted to maintain good relations with everyone in the school if I could. That was my top priority for the life at Yomiyama. Hey, Sakakibara, do you believe in ghosts or curses or whatever? Is that your thing? Out of the blue, he came at me with a question like that. I tipped my head to the one side and replied, come on, like, you mean ghosts? Curses? What about so-called paranormal phenomena generally? Kazumi cut in. I don't just mean spectral phenomena either. It could be UFOs or superpowers or the predictions of Nostradamus too. Do you think they are real? Mysterious phenomena out there that can't be explained by modern science? I mean, when you hit me with a question like that, I look over at Kazumi and his expression was uncomfortably serious. I guess at a basic level, I try not to take that stuff seriously. None of it. Ever. Well, let me think. Stuff on that's level with the 7 mysteries of school, at least. I'd say never. I had no idea how the conversation had made the sun turn, but I had a strong feeling they were gearing up to tell me those stories. I thought I'd called it and beat them to the punch. I've already heard the story about the mastermind of rabbits and marmots. Have you ever heard of the Hand in the Lotus Pond? Teshigawara was the one that asked that. You guys have a story like that too, huh? It's the pond right there, man. Teshigawara extended a hand and pointed. A slight distance away, I could see a small square pond circled by concrete. We came out of the 3-story iron-ribbed school building that housed our classroom and walked down the path in the courtyard. There was a school building of a similar size on the other side of the yard, which was Building B. The building we had come out of was Building C. Each of the structures was connecting to Building A, the main building, with the teacher's office and the principal's office, by a covered walkway. Past that, right next door, was a building called the Special Classes Building. This building, also abbreviated Building S, was, as the name implied, where the special classrooms like the home ec room and the music room were. And the pond Teshigawara was pointing at was a slight distance from the yard. We went as far as the entrance to Building A, then walked down the path away from it. They say that a human hand comes out of that pond, all wrapped up in lotus leaves, sometimes covered in blood. Teshigawara told the story in a menacing voice, but all I could think was, how idiotic. Besides, he said it was a lotus pond, but when we got closer and I could see, it looked as if it was actually water lilies growing there, not lotuses. Well, let's leave the 7 mysteries for another time, Kazumi offered. I wonder, Sakakibara. There are so many kinds of paranormal phenomena. Do you categorically deny them all? Well, that's true, I murmured, casting a sidelong glance at the surface of the pond, covered in round lily leaves. The word UFO means an unidentified flying object, so in that sense they exist. Whether or not they're flying saucers driven by aliens is a separate issue. As for superpowers, those people they show you on TV or in magazines are phonies, 100%. When you see stuff like that, don't you think that actually makes it harder to believe? Kazumi and Teshigawara looked at each other, both wearing troubled expressions. Nostradamus' predictions and about what Prince of Darkness may or may not do is a story for next year. If we just wait a year and a couple more months, we should find out if he's real or not, even if we don't want to. So, do you guys think he'll be alright? He'll be right? When I asked the question, Kazumi cocked his head ambiguously. Who knows? On the other hand, Teshigawara replied, I pretty much buy it, actually, and twisted one corner of his mouth in a contrived smirk. So when the world is going to end in the summer of 1999, it'd be... It'd be stupid to get myself all worked up over tests or whatever. Doing what I enjoy while I still can, that's the way to go. I was having trouble telling exactly how serious he was. But what with all the fuss over the Shininkyo group, our generation had a surprisingly large number of true believers in this event. I'd seen data about that somewhere. They're not giving it any deep thought. They're just using a prediction about destruction as a reason to avoid personal issues that are staring them in the face here and now. I don't remember when it was, but my dad instantly pointed out this interpretation after hearing about the attack, and I pretty much agreed with him. Getting back on track, when we'd gone past the lily pond and were headed towards the back of Building B, Teshigawara spoke up. You don't believe in ghosts or curses or stuff like that, then? Oh. Getting sleepy. Yeah, I guess not. Do you feel like something could happen that would make you believe? I mean, if something like that just popped up right in front of me and proof that there was a ghost shoved in my face, I guess I'd start to believe it. Proof, huh? Proof, is it? That last was Kazumi. He pushed the bridge of his silver-rimmed glasses back up his nose with a furrowed brow. God, what now? What were these two trying to get at? I was starting to get kind of a bad feeling about them after all. Oh, and my pace quickened. What's that? I turned back around to look at them, pointing at the building that had come into view on the other side of Building B. Is that another school building? That's Building 0. And that's what everyone calls it, Cosby answered. Building 0? Because it's so old. Until about 10 years ago, the third-year class were in there. There were a lot of reasons they stopped using it, but the number of students dropped, so the number of classes dropped too. Apparently Building A and all the others got their names later on, so that's why people just call this old building Building 0. That old building certainly did look older than all the other buildings I'd seen on campus today. It was a 2-story structure of massive red bricks, but the bricks in its wall were completely faded, and after a closer look, I saw that cracks had begun to form. All the windows to the original classrooms that marched around the second floor were shut tight. In places, boards had been put up, probably to replace broken glass. Given the turn of the conversation up until now, this struck me as a perfect spot to generate fodder for whispered rumors of the supernatural, about ghosts or spirits or the 7 mysteries. So, it's not being used for anything now? I asked, taking a careful step forward. Not as regular classrooms anyway, Kazumi replied as he walked beside me. The second floor is as good as abandoned, so no one's allowed up there. The secondary library and art room are in the first floor in the culture club. You guys have a secondary library? Oh, our sound cut off for a moment, but it's okay, it'll come back very soon. What kind of books do they have there? In the culture club. You guys have a secondary library? Hardly anyone uses it. Usually everyone goes into the main library in Building A. I've only ever been there once. What kind of books do they have there? Documents about local history and antique books that alums have donated. It's got a truly remarkable number of things like that, apparently. It's more of a storage room for books than a library. Huh. I wouldn't mind taking a look at least once. My interest was piqued. This school has an art club, right? I asked, having a sudden thought. After a dragging delay, Cosme answered, Yeah, now we do. I watched her go. Up. I skipped something here. Up! I skipped a whole page. I'm so sorry. 2 whole pages, actually. Now you do. What does that mean? Extracurricular activities were suspended last year. They started up again in April. Teshigawara was the one to reply. Just FYI. Oh, excuse me. Just FYI, the lovely Miss Mikimiya. Try to find a good place to stop. Okay. Teshigawara was the one who replied. Just FYI, the lovely Miss Mikimiya is the sponsor. If I had any talent in that area, I'd be swearing how much I wanted in on the club, too. You gonna join or something, Sakakibara? I stopped walking and turned to look at the bleached bobblehead. Then shrugged my shoulders rather exaggeratingly. Teshigawara didn't seem to take that badly, his eyes flashing with a grin. Hey, Sakakibara. We'd started walking again when Teshigawara spoke, as if trying to pull me back. There's actually something we... Oh! Just then I allowed a surprised oh, which served to interrupt whatever Teshigawara was about to say. The sound that escaped me after a different... divertent tightening of my throat. Magnificent flower beds had been set up in the yard between Building 0 and Building B where we were headed. A few among them were resplendent with yellow roses in bloom. Just then, among the clusters of flowers bobbing in the placid spring breeze, I saw her. Misaki. Without a second's and to spare for thought, I started heading straight towards her. Hey, Sakakibara! What are you doing, Sakakibara? I heard the dismayed tone of Teshigawara and Kazumi's voices, but I ignored it. I hurried over and even broke into a slight jog. Misaki. She was by herself, sitting on a bench in the shade of a tree on the far side of the flower bed. There was no one else in sight. Hey there, I called out to her. She was staring into space, as if sunk in contemplation, but she reacted to my voice. Her eyes, the white eye patch laid on her left one, turned to me and halted. Hey. I tried to act nonchalant and raised a hand casually. The name's Misaki, right? I walked up to the bench right where she sat. My heart was beating faster than it was that morning when I had spoken in front of the entire class. I felt as though my breathing was getting more strained too. We're in the same class, huh? Third years, class 3. I transferred here today. Why? Her lips moved only slightly. The same tone of voice I'd heard on the elevator at the hospital. The same cool, detached way of talking. Why? Are you sure about this? She repeated. What? I didn't understand her questions. Why? Are you sure about this? I didn't have the faintest idea what she was asking me in either case, and could only stand there, stricken. What I meant was, I scrambled for some way to keep the conversation going, but she turned her eyes away from me, stood up from the bench in silence. That was when I got a clear look at the name tag hanging from her blazer. It was a light purple card, indicating that she was a third year. While I may have been imagining how very dirty and beat up the paper looked, her name was written there quite clearly. Misaki. Viewing the cliffs. May Misaki. My mouth flopped. Fish-like. I tried to tell her I saw you at the hospital the other day, but the words wouldn't come together. I was still trying when she said simply, You should be careful. Then she quietly turned her back to me. Wait! I called out in a rush to try and stop her, but she kept her back to me. You should be careful. It might have started already. Then May Misaki left me. As I stood, rooted half in shock, and departed the shadow of the tree where the bench stood, I watched her go. She moved toward the entrance to Building 0, and disappeared inside the aging building, as if melting away in the lingering gloom. The bell announced the end of the lunch period began to peal, releasing the frozen moment. I looked around me, feeling as though I had been jerked away from my senses. Hey, what are you doing, Sakakibara? Teshigawara's shout reached me. We've got gym next. The locker room is next to the gymnasium. Better hurry if we're going to be on time. When I turned around, Teshigawara's lips were pursed so far out, he might have been whistling. Beside him, Kazumi was shaking his head incessantly over something. His face paled and bowed. Let's see how far... we can get one more bit in before we wrap it up for today. Gym class is divided into boys and girls. I was sitting on a bench in the shade of a tree on the north side of the field, still in my uniform. I still wasn't allowed to do vigorous exercise according to the doctor's instructions, so, as I told Teshigawara, there wasn't any particular need for me to hurry over. I was the only boy sitting out of class. Everyone wore matching white exercise clothes and ran around the 400-meter track, despite the balmness of the afternoon sunlight. Only 10 or so figures moved about on the broad field. A slightly cold sensation went through me, for some reason, as I watched the scene. When I ran, I liked to do long distances and short distances. I liked using exercise machines and swimming too. What I didn't like was soccer or basketball. Basically, I'm terrible at team sports. I wish I could run, I thought. I tried taking a few slow, deep breaths, and I didn't feel anything strange in my chest, which just made me want to join even more. And yet, there was a part of me that cringed in terror. That felt as though if I were to run and jump around recklessly, a hole would immediately open up again somewhere in my lungs. "You're not going to have a third one." That's what my dad had told me. But that wasn't nearly convincing enough for me to take it seriously. If I was stupid and pushed myself too far, I would have to go through all these terrible feelings again. And I was done with that. What I had to do now was take it easy for a while. That was my only option. The girls were doing long jumps in a sandlot on the western side of the field. I thought I would see her among them, maybe Misaki. I squinted my eyes to look, but they were pretty far away, so I couldn't make anyone out. Considering she had an eye patch over her left eye, maybe she was sitting out, in which case she would be on the benches nearby. I spotted a person who might have been her, standing still alone a short distance from a sandlot in the shade of a tree wearing a uniform. Was that her? Because of the distance, I couldn't tell if it was May or not. I couldn't exactly stare at the girls all class long. A sigh escaped me as I laced my fingers behind my head and reclined into them. I squeezed my eyes shut, and all at once I heard the shrill voice of Ray and the Minya asking, "Why?" ringing in my ears. I guess it was about 5 or 6 minutes after that. Sakakibara? Someone was talking to me. Surprised, my eyes opened. Just 3 feet away, I saw a girl in a navy blazer. It wasn't Misaki, though. She wore not an eye patch, but silver-rimmed glasses. Her hair was not cut short in a bob, but grew to her shoulders. It was Yukari Sakuragi, class representative. "Are you staying out of gym for now?" Taking care that she wouldn't notice the slight disappointment I was feeling inside, I replied, "Yeah, it's only been a week or so since I've gotten out of the hospital and all. The doctor told me to hold off on exercising and see how I feel. Excuse me." "Are you staying out too? Do you feel sick today?" "I fell yesterday and twisted my leg." Yukari Sakuragi dropped her eyes to her leg. That was when I noticed a painful-looking bandage wrapped around her right leg, from the top of her knee down to her shin. You didn't happen to fall on the hill beside the back gate, did you?" I asked in a half-joke. When I said it, Sakuragi smiled, as if letting go some kind of tension. "Luckily it happened somewhere else. You already know about that jinx, huh?" "Kind of, yeah." "So then," she begins. But I ignored it and seized the chance to cut in. "I wanted to thank you for coming to the hospital the other day." "Oh, we were happy to do it." "Do you want to sit down?" I stood up, offering the bench to the injured girl. Then I changed the subject. "Can you tell me why there aren't 2 class groups in this gym period?" Let's see. Here we go. "I've been wondering about that for a little while. I thought it was normal for a class to be split up into boys and girls like this join up in the class next door, especially in a public school. Plus, there are 2 teachers for the boys and the girls, so with just the 1 class, there's half as many students as there should be. At least with this few people, we wouldn't be able to have a soccer game in class. Not that I could care less about that missed opportunity." "The other classes are different," Sakuragi answered. "Class 1 and Class 2 have gym together, and Class 4 and Class 5 have gym together. Class 3 is the only one by itself." "Why Class 3? I could understand, since there was an odd number of third-year classes, but then why was Class 3 the one by itself? Wouldn't Class 5 usually be the odd one out?" "You were with Kazumi and Teshigawara during lunch, right?" This time, she was the one to change the subject. There. "Yeah, I was. What about it?" Still sitting on the bench, she cocked her head and looked up at me. "Well, did they tell you anything?" Hazumi and Tishigawara? Yeah. They gave me a quick tour of the school. Basically, hey, that's building A, behind the building is building S, where the special classes are, like that. They told me a ghost story about the Lotus Pond, too. And that's all? We went to building 0 last, so they told me a little about the old school building. And that's all? Pretty much, I think, yeah. Oh. Yukari Sakuragi bowed her head with a quiet whisper, then lowered her voice even more. I have to do this right, or Akazawa's going to get mad at me. I caught only snatches of what she was murmuring to herself. Akazawa? Wasn't Akazawa one of the students who didn't come to school today? Sakuragi slowly got up from the bench, wearing a pensive expression. I could clearly see how her movements accommodated the injury to her right leg. So, Sakuragi. I decided to just try asking her. I mean, where's Misaki? What? She tilted her head to one side. The girl in her class, Mei Misaki, you know, the one with the patch over her left eye. She's staying out of gym class too. Sakuragi kept cocking her head and repeating, What? What? She looked completely baffled for some reason. Why? What was making her react so bizarrely? I ran into her outside Building 0 during lunch. Just then, far off in the distance, we heard a deep reverberating rumble. Was a plane taking off? No, it didn't sound like that. Could it be thunder? I craned my head back to look towards the sky. From what I could see here in the shade of the tree, it was the same. Excuse me. It was the same clear May day it had been before, so I thought. But when I scanned around, I saw that ominous clouds were gathering slightly to the north. So it really was thunder from over there that we had heard. As the thought occurred to me, the same rumble sound began and started again far off. So it was that. Distant spring thunder. Must be in for a little rain after sunset. I ventured this prediction myself, casting my eyes over this northern sky. Huh? I spotted something in a place I hadn't expected, and the question slipped out of me. What's someone doing up there? Building C, the 3-story school building that stood on the north side of the field, not on the roof. Someone was standing just inside the railing that circled the roof. Was that? It was her. Mei Misaki. The realization came suddenly, even though there was no way I could have clearly seen her face or even her clothes. And in the exact moment I had left Yukari Sakuragi behind, still wearing her perplexed expression, and started running towards Building C. While I was running up the stairs, the shortness of breath finally hit me. The X-ray image of my collapsed lung flickered through my mind, but I was more focused on the figure I had seen from the field. I found the door on the roof easily. It was a cream-colored steel door. A cardboard sign was taped on the door which read, "No unnecessary access" in red ink. I decided in less than a second to ignore such an inexplicably ambiguous prohibition. The door was locked. I pushed it open and burst outside. My instinct had been right. The identity of the figure was indeed Mei Misaki. On the roof of the iron-ribbed school building, a grimy concrete wasteland alone in the center of it all, she stood right against the railing that faced the field. She was facing this way, so she must have noticed me right away. But without a word, she spun her back to me. Bringing my ragged breathing under control, I walked over to stand beside her. Hey, Misaki, I called weakly at her. So you're staying out of gym class too, huh? No response. I closed the distance one step, then two. Is this okay? I mean, are you allowed to be up here? No response. Her back was still turned when a voice came back to me. So, watching up close hardly has any more meaning. And the teachers aren't going to yell at you? doubt it. Her reply was a whisper as she suddenly turned to face me. I saw that she was holding an octavo-sized sketchbook tightly against her chest. You're up here too. She turned the question back to me. So, I said, copying her earlier response. It's true there's not much point in watching gym classes. Do you draw? Without answering, she hid the sketchbook behind her. I mentioned this when I ran into you at lunch, but I transferred today and this is class 3. You're Sakakibara. Yeah. You're Misaki, right? May Misaki? I glanced at the name tag pinned to her chest. How do you write May? Same way you write hell. Howl? Or sound? Like in resonance or scream. Howl. Huh? Howling on a cliff. Do you remember? We met at the municipal hospital recently. I was able to finally ask her the question, but my heart was still utterly unable to find even a beat. Typically, it was halfway to overdrive. Thump. Thump. I could hear the beats strung in my ears. It was Monday last week. I happened to get on the same elevator as you in the inpatient ward. Then you got off at the second basement level. You told me your name when I asked you. You don't remember? Last week. Monday. May Misaki murmured, her right eye, not hidden by the eye patch, slowly closing. That might have happened. That's when I thought. It's been on my mind ever since. And then you were in class today. I was shocked. Oh. It was a curt reply, but her small thin lips looked as though they held a phantom of a smile. Why were you going to the second basement level that day? I pressed. You said you were dropping something off, or something like that, right? For who? You were carrying a white doll, it looked like. So, what was it you were dropping off? I hate the way you're interrogating me. She spoke in the same curt voice and turned her eyes away. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologized quickly. I wasn't trying to force you to answer anything, it's just something happened that day. Something sad. Half of my body is waiting there, the poor thing. Hadn't she said something like that in the elevator that day? Half my body. The poor thing. It had been weighing on my mind, but obviously I wouldn't be able to ask her anything else. She wasn't sharing anything more. The distant thunder rolled again. The wind blowing over the roof felt a touch colder than before. You. I heard Mai Misaki's voice. Your name is Koichi Sakakibara. Is that right? Yeah. That must bother you. What? Hold on a second. Was she about to bring that up? Now? Why did you say that? I hurried to regain my composure, and they fixed me with a silent look. I mean, wasn't it around... on time... Oh, wait. I mean, wasn't it around this time last year? The whole country was panicking. It hasn't even been a year since it's passed. I didn't answer. Sakakibara. It's a good thing you weren't named Sato. When she said that, another whisper of a smile crossed her lips. I was really in for it. It had been so long since anyone had alluded to that, and it hadn't happened yet at school today, and now, of all things, to hear it from her, the lips of Mai Misaki. What's wrong? May tilted her head curiously. Did you not want me to mention that? I tried to reply, who cares, and look as if it didn't bother me, but I didn't really pull it off. Before I could even begin to think over what to do now, it brings up bad memories. I'd started confessing, straight-faced. At my old school last year, when the attack on Kobe happened, and everyone started talking about Sakakibara Sato, another 14-year-old middle schooler got sucked in too. Did they bully you? No. Nobody ever did anything serious enough to call bullying, but no. It hadn't been anything that bad. There hadn't been any intentional or underhanded malice in it all. Everyone just kind of thought it was funny. They would write my name with the same letters he used, or call me Sato. Childish looking around that was harmless enough. Childish joking around that was harmless enough, but I let it roll off me with an easy laugh in the heat of the moment, but sometimes I hated it more than I could stand, more than I ever realized. In other words, the building blocks of stress. Then, last year in the fall, when I had been carrying the burden of the stress every day, that was when I had my first spontaneous swim-over acts. Maybe one of the reasons it happened goes back to all that stuff about Sakakibara, remembering everything that happened. It doesn't seem like such a forced theory anymore. And the reason I packed off to being taken in by my grandparents in Yomiyama while my dad was out of Japan for a year is because he found out about what was going on and had a rare moment of parental concern for me. He probably decided it would be best if I could change up my daily environment and push the reset button on my interactions with people at school, where things kept getting more and more strained. Even after I told her the broad outlines of what had happened, Mei Misaki didn't backpedal or sympathize with me, or act embarrassed about what she had done. She asked, "Has anyone done it to you here yet?" "You're the first," I answered with a bitter smile. Oddly, I had relaxed slightly. All this morning, every time someone had spoken my name, I had tensed up expecting this. And for all such a small thing, when I put it into words to tell her about it, it seemed stupid somehow. "They're probably just being polite," May said. "Maybe. I find it hard to believe that they'd be worried about your feelings." "What do you mean?" "Because Sakakibara is a name inextricably associated with death. And not just any death. At that, it's a cruel, senseless death that plays itself out at school. Associated with death. Yeah." May nodded quietly and held her hair down as the wind tossed it. "And that bothers everyone, so maybe they're not aware of it. Like a wound they're protecting." "What does that mean? What was she talking about?" I understood that the word death and the concepts it implied were ominous and had always upset people. That was obvious, but you know, at this school, May's tone was as cold and detached as ever. "Here, third year class 3 is the closest to death of all of the classes, more than any other class at any other school. Much more." "Close to death? What is that?" I couldn't process what she meant by it all, and I pressed a hand on my forehead. May's right eye, fixed on me, narrowed until it was only a slit. "You don't know anything, do you, Sakakibara?" Then she spun back around to look at the field. She rested her chest against the brown railing and angled forward over it, then bent her head back, standing behind her. I looked up at the sky too. The cloud cover had increased substantially from earlier. I couldn't hear the distant thunder again. Frightened by the sound, crows were cawing, and I saw several pairs of cold black wings beat their way across the sky into the trees of the schoolyard. "You don't know, do you, Sakakibara?" Still staring up at the sky, Mei Misaki whispered to herself. "No one has told you yet." "Told me what?" I asked. "You'll find out soon." There was nothing I could say of that. "Also, you're better off not coming near me." When she said that, I understood even less. "You should stop talking to me like this, too." "But why can't I?" "I said, you'll find out soon." come on. That didn't really help. In fact, it didn't help at all. While I was searching for something to say, not sure how to respond to that, Misaki turned her body in silence, hugging the sketchbook to her chest. She passed by me and headed for the door. I'll see you. Sakakibara. My body froze instantly, as if she cast some sort of repugnant spell on me. But I shook it off quickly and ran after her. As I did, another crow cawed in the schoolyard. One of the fundamentals Reiko told me the night before came to mind all on its own. If you hear the cawing of a crow when you leave the roof, you go inside by... Was it the right leg? Or the left leg? Which one was it? Pretty sure it's the left leg. As I worked through all this, May briskly opened the door and disappeared beyond it. She had gone in with her right foot. The rain finally started to fall after the end of 6th period. It was a hard rain, like a sudden evening shower out of the season. As I was getting my things together to go home, worried about not having an umbrella, my cell phone started to vibrate inside my bag. I had set it on silent. It was a call from my grandmother. I'm leaving right now to come get you. I want you to wait for me at the front gate. It was a welcome message, but my reply was instantly, It's okay, Grandma. It'll probably be sprinkling by the time you get here. There's no way for a covering boy to talk. And what if you get soaked and catch a cold? But no but, Koichi, alright? You wait until I get there. She hung up then. I looked around me blankly and sighed. Hey, Sakakibara, you have a cell phone, right? Right then, someone spoke to me. It was Teshigawara. He rummaged in the inside pocket of his uniform and then pulled out a white phone with a flashy strap charm tied to it. We'll be phone buddies. What's your number? There was still a small selection of middle school students who had their own cell phones. Even at schools in Tokyo, they were about as common as wireless headset and landline phones. Maybe 1 or 3 kids at the most. As we traded numbers, I glanced over at the bank of windows. There, all the way in the back, Misaki was already gone. I waited until Teshigawara put his phone back in his pocket, then said, You mind if I ask you something? About that girl, Misaki, who sat at the desk. She's pretty weird. What's her deal? You feeling alright, Sakakibara? Teshigawara angled his head with an expression that looked completely serious. Get it together, man. He slapped me in the back heavily and then quickly departed the scene. I left the classroom and, as I was heading towards Building A and the front gate, I ran into Miss Mikami, the assistant teacher in the hall. How did it go today, Sakakibara? What do you think of your new school? Her questions came with a natural smile. Utterly discombobulated, I replied, I think I'll manage. Miss Mikami nodded mechanically. Do you have an umbrella? It's raining. My grandmother said she's coming to get me with the car. She called me on my cell phone a minute ago. You'll be alright then. Take care. It was only 15 minutes later, my grandmother's black Excedric pulled up into the driveway by the entrance. Coming through the rain, the ferocity which had slackened somewhat. There were a couple of students near the entrance who hadn't been able to leave yet because of the unexpected rain. Hi there, thank you so much for following Suki-kun VT. Thank you so much for joining and thank you so much for following. Welcome to the Coven. You are at a safe place and you are always welcome. I quickly climbed into the passenger seat of the car, as if fleeting from their looks. Sorry to keep you waiting, Koichi. My grandmother greeted me, adjusting her hands on the wheel. You don't feel any worse, do you? Oh no, it's fine. Do you think you'll get along with your classmates? I guess. We drove away from the school building and headed slowly towards the slick road at the front gate, and on our way out, I was leaning against the door, gazing outside, when my eyes fell on her. Of course, no worries. Everyone is welcome here, regardless of if you speak English, a little bit of English, not much English, you know, a different language. You are always welcome here. There is no pressure at all. I was leaning against the door, gazing outside, when my eyes fell on her. The rain had slacked off a lot, but it was more than a drizzle, and she was walking through it without an umbrella alone. Mei Misaki. "What's wrong?" my grandmother asked, just before pulling the car onto the road outside. Something in my reaction must have tipped her off. I hadn't even made much noise or opened the window or something. "Nothing. Don't worry about it," I answered, then twisted my body around to look back, and yet May was already gone, as if she had melted away into the falling rain. That's how it seemed to me that day. Alright, we are at the 2-hour mark of the stream. I'm very happy with where we're at, so I'm going to stop for today. Put a bookmark here, we'll save it for the next reading stream, which I'll probably schedule for this week because, oh my goodness, I did not realize so many people would turn up for a stream where literally it's just me reading with some rain in the background. Really, I just felt like this would be a nice little break from like the usual gaming streams. That way, you know, everyone can relax, just have a good time, have some decent background noise. I'm going to switch over to the chill talk so we can have screens so that we can have our little chill talk before we leave. So how did everybody like that stream? I honestly am very happy with how that stream ended. I had a really wonderful time, and honestly, it's been a long time since I read this book. We're a pretty good way in. So thank you so much. I'm very happy you enjoyed the stream. This is definitely a recurring thing that will be happening because this is really nice. I personally love reading, so it was really nice to get to share that interest and that love with you guys. So thank you so much for joining, and I will update you guys on my Twitter of the schedule this week, and we will get into that very promptly. We'll get back into reading that promptly. And throughout the week, you can expect, of course, another reading of another. That's going to be a coin phrase I'm going to be coining. So, we'll be reading that. But we'll also be playing some more Genshin, some more Honkai. So, if you guys are interested in tuning in for those streams, feel free to tune in. Thank you so much for joining. Drink plenty of water, eat some good food, enjoy the company you have, and just have a wonderful night. Thank you all so much for joining, and I will see you again for next stream. You have a good night then.